of the $115 air fork for mountain bikes from Buckloss. Today we're going to be talking about a few of the things that I found while extensively testing this fork. And let me tell you, it is definitely a good idea to heed the warning labels on this fork. Although, for only $115, if you're doing certain riding, I would definitely recommend it. First off, the warning label says, use only for leisure cross country. Do not use for free ride downhill, dirt jumper, or any hard riding. And let me tell you, that is 100% accurate. Follow that warning label, even though I didn't. I tested it so you don't get hurt. So, what do we have? We have an air fork that only cost us $115. It is a 29er fork, but it is a straight stem, which is part of why I got this fork, because this is an older model Orbea MX-29 with a straight stem. It's an entry-level cross-country bike. It's great for getting started in the sport, but you would, eventually want to upgrade to something else. And I'm very limited on what forks I have for this bike when it comes to choosing, because it's not a tapered stem. When I got this bike, I really didn't want to put a lot of money into it either. So is this a good fork for the money? I think so, personally. The first and most obvious area where it shines is weight loss. So I have a 2016 Kona Blast that came with a RockShox spring fork, and this still is just by 0.2 pounds heavier. However, this is an air fork, and that's a spring fork, so, this is definitely a heavier bike by far. The frame is heavier, even though it's a medium frame, and the 2016 Kona Blast is a large frame, which is very surprising. It shows where the Kona actually, is a little bit better bike. But I like the geometry on this. It's a little more modern because this is a 2019. The Kona is a 2016. But they're both great bikes. This came with a Sun Tour spring fork, which comes on a lot of entry-level bikes and also even some mid-level bikes out there. And they're not great forks. Basically anything is better than those forks. They usually wear out pretty quickly. They are oversprung for the rider's weight. They're just overall a terrible experience. Why I wanted to upgrade a little bit. So they actually hold pressure very well while riding. Even on hard riding, like it says not to do, it held pressure the entire time. My sag remained the same, and I found the pressure even remained the same at the end of the ride when I checked it. But one area where it actually wasn't great, we'll get into later on here. It actually has 21 clicks of rebound damping, which is just insane. For a $115 air fork, that's just nuts, dude. It does also have compression damping, although it is a set it and leave it, as you must remove the lockout cap here with an Allen key. And you cannot adjust it on the fly or on the go unless you have an Allen key. And honestly, it was a little bit difficult to do, so I don't recommend, doing it too often or, on the go. I would set it at home and then put it back together, because you have to remove the cap, then you have to manually turn it, which is actually a little bit of a chore, and then you have to be sure to get the cap on correctly. Otherwise, you can lock out your forks by accident and not be able to unlock them until you fix it. You can also adjust the compression damping so much that you lock out your forks as well. So yeah, the compression damping isn't really advertised on these forks, and for good reason. As far as everything else on these forks, they hold up decently. The stickers are already coming off, but there's other issues here that we'll get into. So where do these forks actually come short or fail? The first and most obvious one that came to me actually is when you are done riding and store the bike. I don't know if this was due to me, riding it pretty hard, because the moment I got it, I went and jumped it. That's all there is to it. But maybe, I would bet that it's gonna do this anyway, regardless of what, sort of riding you're doing. Even if you do ride it correctly, set all the correct pressures, take good care of it, eventually it's going to do this, but it will lose pressure overnight, basically. At first it was like, a couple days, few days, and then it was basically overnight. It wasn't a few hours, at least. It'll hold pressure for the day, but by the next day, yeah, almost completely flat. You are going to have to check your pressures and air this up every single time you go riding, and have a day in between at least. And it probably will just get worse from there, honestly, because it is a cheap fork, so longevity and durability is probably not great. I would just recommend always checking pressures before you go ride. The stickers are just peeling off on their own, honestly, just from, sitting. They were already bubbling when I got it. I tried to lay them flat a little bit better when I first got it, and they're already coming off. That's not really a big deal, but for $115, I guess you can't complain about the stickers too much. But then the next big thing is actually this cable. The lockout cable is part of why I got these forks, is because I wanted to have a remote lockout up on my handlebars so that I remembered to unlock them, because that is a big issue with me, is I always forget to unlock my suspension. So I wanted to have it right there so that I could remember it a lot easier, and also do it on the fly. And it's a great feature as long as it works, right? So one issue that I had was that one day I went riding, I went to a lift and did some downhill riding, and I got to the bottom of a hill and was wondering what was wrong with my bike, and I looked at it and I was locked out even though it said I wasn't. I compressed the forks a few times, nothing happened, didn't go anywhere, completely solid. What I noticed was that the lockout cable itself had actually come loose and basically pulled its way through. And the way this works is it's got a tapered slide, basically, and the cable pulls that little block that's tapered across a pin that then locks out the forks. And it had pulled that through and then stuck in that position. And it was unable to be released at all. I had to actually pull out my multi-tool, remove it, and then I found that because of the way it happened, basically, it turned this cap and also pulled the cable as a result. Since the cap, when it turns, actually adjusts the compression, and you can go to full lockout, it both locked out the pin and got into full compression lockout. So basically I had to turn the cap, and then I lost the screw, so I only had one screw. I just had to remove the lockout completely for the rest of the day. I was still able to ride, I got my compression back, but I had no more lockout whatsoever, which it was downhill, so I didn't need it. But at the same time, that was kind of shitty. Which is another area why you would not want to use this for downhill. You would always want to use this for its intended purpose. Do not use this for downhill, enduro, or hard trail riding. Really, it says racing shocks. No, this is not a racing shock by any means. Ride leisurely for cross country, some slight trails. It'll absorb a lot of the bumps. It'll be a little bit smoother ride, which will be nice, on a budget, especially since, it's a good budget fork for those older bikes with straight steering tubes, it's going to be better, you know, for that. But don't push it. I was able to fix it on the fly, and then when I got home, thankfully, the local hardware store did carry the correct screws, so I was able to pick up another screw. In fact, I actually picked up spares just to be safe, and then I even adjusted the compression to where I like it, set it, left it, put it back together, and repaired it. So now it's fully functional again, but just be aware, if you're using it for anything more than what the warning label says, be prepared to have it break, and you're gonna either have to fix it or replace it, which is always no fun. Other quick notes are that, you know, as far as I can tell, it hasn't been leaking any oil. It uses, you know, pretty standard fittings and everything. It's pretty easy to work on. It's pretty easy to install. You know, you just cut it like any other fork tube. I would recommend definitely taking it to your local shop. Just have it done right, especially since you save the money on, you know, your fork as well. But there are better forks for just a little bit more money out there. Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. These are actually a pretty good deal. So if you're looking for something on a budget for an older bike and you're just getting into the sport, I definitely recommend them. Otherwise, spend a little bit more money and actually get something decent for your cross-country or trail bike. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Oh my God, every time. Jesus, that's just way too blown out.